This is what I need, Carol. I need this.
Welcome to Mayfield Place. A typical street in the Burbs.
Morning, Walter!
Where nothing much ever happened.
Walter's dog just took a dump on Rumsfield's lawn again.
Until the Klopeks moved in.
Klopex? Klopex.
Klopek. No one goes in, no one comes out.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. Today we're talking about the 1989 film The Burbs. Tom Hanks, Joe Dante, our homie who did Gremlins. He's a good director. I like this movie. What'd you think?
Yeah, this movie's fun. Not a masterpiece by any means, but like it's entertaining, it's goofy, and like it does what it sets out to do, which is like make you enjoy watching, and having fun. So yeah, you can't complain too much,
Yeah, I was super entertained. It's funny. It's shot really well, and the set design is really fun. It's just a fun movie. It's a good watch. So we're continuing listener recommendation month. My coworker / boss recommended this film to us, and I'm glad we watched it. I actually borrowed the Blu-ray from him, which is super nice. Shout out to Donnie. He was actually
watch it
on our
YouTube with ads. So
you did? Oh wow, that's interesting. Shout out to Donnie who lent the movie and recommended it to us. He was actually on our Gremlins podcast, which is also directed by Joe Dante, who did this, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of fun trivia on this movie from me looking it up. So this movie, it's interesting because I read some of the backstory in the trivia. This film has become a popular cult movie, even though it actually made a lot of money. But it received terrible reviews when it came out. Like, everyone shit on this movie. But it made double its budget, and basically they all figured it was bad as well, like all the cast and crew. And so they're just like, oh, we'll just go on to the next thing. And over the years, people kept saying, like, oh, you did The Burbs? The Burbs is awesome. So apparently it's his most popular movie next to Gremlins. Gremlins being number 1 and this being number 2, which is cool. I don't really recall a lot of his other movies that he's done.
Yeah, I don't know of any other ones.
I'll do a quick little search here.
Unless I just don't know that he directed them. Probably.
Yeah, I know he's done some that I've seen. I'm pretty sure. Oh, he did Small Soldiers from the 90s. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so. I know what it is, but I don't think I ever saw it.
Okay. For our listeners, you got to watch that movie. That movie is a blast. It's like action figures that come to life and battle. And it's so fun and such a cool movie. I grew up on that movie. I have the action figures from that movie too, which is crazy. He's done quite a bit of 80s movies. We'll have to get into his filmography and some other months and stuff. Like he did The Howling, which we mentioned briefly in our American Werewolf in London review, because that movie kind of set the precedence of 80s kind of werewolf movies and makeup. He did Looney Tunes Back in Action with Brendan Fraser, and I've never seen that movie, and I don't think I ever will. But let's see if he's done anything else that's pretty cool. He did the second Gremlins, which I do want to watch. I mean, obviously we watched the first one. Oh, dude, he did 2 episodes of Police Squad.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so Police Squad, for those who don't know, that's The Naked Gun, Frank Drebin, Leslie Nielsen.
The TV show before it was a movie.
Yeah, he did the original 1978 Piranha movie as well. Interesting. Cool. I like him. I think he's a good director. I think he directed this movie very well. Like, you kind of see it in the trailer where it's kind of goofy, but like when the camera like zooms in and out on Tom Hanks and
like the
other guy.
There's a lot of like overacting, but it's all on purpose, and it's supposed to be like wacky and like goofy, So like, yeah, he did a good job of like walking that line where like he makes it like wacky, but it's not so heavy-handed that it's like, what the hell is going on? You know, or like,
yeah, it's meant to be like, yeah, it has that kind of goof factor to it, which I like. Apparently, this was the worst reviewed film of 1989, which is interesting. I mean, come on, we watched Tango and Cash. Like, how is that reviewed better than this?
Yeah.
Which, again, I love Tango and Cash, and our review at our overview of 2024 movies. It's definitely in my top
and in my bottom.
80s. Yeah. Yeah, and then the opening sequence is awesome. How it just zooms in, goes into the neighborhood. Again, the set design is awesome in this movie. I love that neighborhood, and it's cool because I love, and I think I've stressed this at least to you before. I don't know to our listeners, but I love like small, intimate movies that take place in kind of one singular location that makes it easy. From a budget standpoint, that's good because you don't have to build a ton of sets. I mean, obviously, this movie had a lot of houses built, but it was on the back lot of Universal, where a lot of famous movies, or excuse me, TV shows and stuff were. Like, I think The Munsters and Leave It to Beaver were some of the houses that were kind of redone for this set.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, watching it, all of the houses are very like different from each other, which is interesting. Because like, especially in a movie about like suburban America in the 80s, like typically all the houses are like exactly the same, just maybe like a different color or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like one or two like really weird houses, and I bet the one that I'm thinking of is the Munsters house, and they just painted it white. And like it's kind of off in the distance, but like it also kind of looks like the house from Beetlejuice. Like it's like very like weird looking and out of place. If you're like, I'm an architecture nerd, so I noticed it. But
yeah,
I was kind of like, I wonder like where they shot this, because it's a little like disparate in like the style of homes, you know.
Yeah,
but
so
that makes
apparently,
sense though if they're just kind of like reusing a bunch of existing sets.
Yeah, they were like Desperate Housewives has used that back lot. Apparently, like a lot of the buildings have changed over time, obviously with other movies and TV shows. But Walter's house, Walter's house, the guy with the dog and the toupee, is the only one that has not changed ever, which is pretty interesting. And his house is awesome.
Yeah.
And apparently, like that's. Again, it's on the Universal backlot. In some scenes, apparently, you can hear like someone yelling "help," and that's because they're doing the Universal studio tour, and they're at the Jaws set where the shark goes on the boat.
That's funny.
Yeah, and apparently, like this movie was. This movie was shot during the writer's strike of 1988, and so the film was like rushed into production to try and avoid that strike. Principal photography began the same day the strike went into effect, unfortunately. So the writer couldn't interfere with the movie, like rewrite scenes or anything like that. So Joe Dante was like, improvise, just like make shit up and let's have fun. And a lot of this film is improvised, which there's a lot of comedic parts that are improvised, and I'll get into those later. At least one particular one that I absolutely loved. But I mean, like, it's Rick Ducommun is hilarious in this movie. So I don't know if you remember what he's in, and I just watched it recently. He's in Die Hard. He's the guy who's like shutting down the power, who's like, shut it down now.
Yeah.
He's that guy. He's, I mean, another 80s who's who of actors. He's really funny in this. And what's also funny is he shuts the power down, like cuts the power in this movie too, and gets electrocuted. So it's a funny tie, which obviously Die Hard was a year before this movie. Yeah, it's really well done. I love all the dialogue. Again, it's zany, like you said. Apparently, it's like the panning in the beginning of the film, like through the maps and everything, is supposed to take place in Des Moines, Iowa. However, several references include like an Illinois license plate on like the garbage truck. They say the film takes place in Chicago, which is like I never even thought that.
Yeah.
I mean, so Jake and I are both from Chicago, so yeah, I didn't even like realize that or think that.
I mean,
again, it just
in the beginning, like you said, when it goes from like the Universal, logo to like zooming in on, it like zooms into like the middle of the country, like not near Chicago. It's like in like Iowa or Nebraska or like something like that, which I thought was interesting because there's no like big cities out there. So like, the suburbs aren't really like what you'd think of in Nebraska or whatever. So
you think of corn.
Yeah.
At least I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole plot, I love the plot. It's very Rear Window-esque from Hitchcock. It's very like Disturbia-esque, which obviously came out in like 2007, so a lot later after this movie. But you've got, the neighbor who's home on vacation from work, and he suspects his neighbors are up to no good. Very Rear Window, very Hitchcockian, but they make it funny. And I think they almost make the house a character, which I like too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the one house on the street that's kind of like dilapidated and like the yard is like all dead and like sticks out like a sore thumb,
Yeah. And they make Tom Hanks a family man in this movie, and he's super young. He had just done Big, which I would like to do. Have you seen Big? You've seen Big.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that movie's awesome. He was nominated for an Oscar for it, and he like wishes he's big. Like he wishes he's a kid and he wishes he's an adult. It's fantastic. I can't believe you've never seen it. And
yeah,
I'm sure you're.
That's another one of those movies where like I know it exists. I know like what it's about, but like I just never saw it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I should watch that, but it just like slips by every time.
Yeah.
I bet you Jenna's, your wife's seen that.
Probably, yeah.
I'm curious if, you'll have to ask her and let me know. Because we'll have to add that to the list. I don't know if it's on our list, but it's good. And so speaking of him being a family man, Tom Hanks was like initially wanting to not have a kid in this movie and like tried hard to have his movie son removed and written out. So, because he was worried. Tom Hanks was worried he'd be starting to like get cast as like a dad,
older.
And he didn't. He was like, I'm not ready for that yet, which is kind of funny.
Well, and he's like, what, like maybe late 20s? In 89.
Yeah. Let's see. That's a good question. We'll have to do some math here that we're both very good at.
Yeah.
He was born in 56, so 88. That's pretty easy math. He was 32 when it filmed in 88, so 32.
Yeah.
So he's my age, which is crazy. I know you're 33. I'll be 33 soon.
And his kid is like 10, so
yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, him not wanting to be typecast that young,
Totally. I mean, I love the whole opening of this movie too in general, where it really establishes the neighborhood and the wacky neighbors and all the people that inhabit this neighborhood. Like you've got
the inner like minglings between everybody and like who's pissed at who and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got Walter's dog that goes and pinches loafs on Bruce Dern's lawn. So I read something pretty funny about that dog. That dog is the same dog from The Silence of the Lambs.
Really?
You've seen The Silence of the Lambs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's Buffalo, what is it, Bob or Bill?
Buffalo
I think
Bill.
Buffalo
Yeah.
Bill. It's Buffalo Bill's dog. So that's pretty funny. Which that's a fantastic movie, by the way, if listeners have not seen it. We've got Corey Feldman in this, who he's a weird dude in general, but we know him from Gremlins, of course, with another Joe Dante favorite. Also know him from The Goonies. He's in The Goonies, right? I'm pretty sure. I'm like 90%.
I think so. He's in Lost Boys.
Yeah, we need to watch that.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me's great. Yeah, Corey Feldman's Mouth. That's right.
Like
He's in
every movie with kids in the 80s, he's basically in it.
Yeah, really popular. Yeah, I like him in this. His character's kind of pointless, but I think he's fine in this. What do you think? I see you smiling over there.
Yeah, so like I was thinking about this a lot today at work, and like not to skip ahead, but Tom Hanks has his like blow up scene where he gives basically the entire theme of the movie in like a monologue,
Which is honestly the best part of the movie.
which is such a good scene. And then they invert it on you at the end and again, which is pretty funny. But
Yeah.
it's funny because Corey Feldman's character is like the punk in the neighborhood, and like he's just like kind of like, I mean, he's not like a dick, like he's not out causing like trouble, but he's just not like the model citizen or whatever.
Yeah.
However you want to describe it. But I think his character is kind of interesting because he's like the opposite of Tom Hanks's character in a lot of ways. Like they both are like the observer in the neighborhood, but like Corey Feldman's character doesn't want to intervene at all. He just gets
wants
a
to
kick out of
watch.
seeing it. Where
Yeah.
Tom Hanks wants to do something about what he sees, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, his character also provides some like good comedic relief and like, for his like party to watch, like them like busting these people's houses.
Yeah.
Pretty funny too.
Yeah, it's like you're literally watching them break and enter and do illegal things, which is hilarious. Yeah, it's excuse me. It's really funny. I mean, I think the soundtrack in this movie by Jerry Goldsmith is awesome. I think it's really well done. And then I mean, these characters, they get the theory that they're satanic cultists that are doing ritual killings and stuff and all kinds of crazy stuff, which is so like out there and crazy to think.
But also so 80s.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just fun, and you get the neighbors, the Klopeks, like digging in the rain and like all kinds of weird stuff, and like their house is like the furnace is similar to like the Home Alone furnace almost, and yeah, I think it's cool, and then they're intrigued even more. Well, they get intrigued even more and like get crazier when they find the femur bone, which is cool. And I love that because you see the dog in the background, and they're, the audience knows more than the characters that when, you've got Rick and Tom Hanks talking, and you've got the dog on the like lawn chair with the bone. I love that. It's just it's well done. It's fun.
I think Rick even like picks it up and throws it for the dog once before he realizes what it is.
Yep. Then you get like there's really good like little moments, like for example when Tom Hanks is watching like TV, and he's like all these like scary movies come on.
Yeah.
Which I wrote down what they were. I mean, I knew two of them. I didn't know the first one he watched.
The Exorcist is
Yeah. Yep.
not the first one. It's the second one.
It's the second
I
one,
think.
yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or number 3, excuse me. The first one is Race with the Devil, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, so... but they looked interesting, and it just was very fitting and funny. And then Tom Hanks has that nightmare, which the nightmare sequence is awesome. And he's
Yeah.
getting, like, barbecued, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's super well done. And
Yeah,
so...
like they do a lot of really, really good, like, mashups of, like, suburban, like, culture and, like, whatever they think is going on in the house. And, like, the dream sequence is, like, the best example of that, where it's,
Yeah.
like, a bunch of, like, hooded cultists, like, putting him on, like, a giant Weber grill, you know? Like, it's really, really funny and just, like, well thought out as, like,
Yeah.
a gag, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, like, dread mixed with suburbanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, really well done. And then they like decide to go inside the cloak. Like finally, the wives are like wisening up the husbands, being like, "Hey, let's go inside." Like actually, just like meet the Klopeks and just see what the deal is. I like that. I mean, you got Carrie Fisher as Tom Hanks' wife, who's great. You've got Wendy Shaw as Bruce Dern's wife. She's great in this. Even though she doesn't do a ton, she's great. It's just good. They add good comedic relief. Yeah, it's fun. You've got that kind of gag where they give Tom Hanks the pretzels and like the sardines.
Yeah.
And like that's super gross.
The, like, super loud, crunchy, like, sound effects.
Yeah. Yeah, like almost like a fish
Wet,
out of water.
sticky,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and then like even like the organ music for like the theme of the Klopeks is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Again,
And
like you said,
we
it's
know
not a
Dr.
masterpiece.
Klopek from somewhere else too.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About almost 10 years earlier.
Yeah. Henry Gibson, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Also
he's-
in Luck of the Irish.
Yeah, Disney Channel movie. That's what I was trying to think of the name. Thank you. Yeah, I love that movie. He's also in Magnolia, which is an awesome Paul Thomas Anderson movie. If you have not seen that, that is an awesome
seen
movie.
that.
Yeah, super good. Tom Cruise is awesome in that movie. Like everyone's awesome in that movie. Yeah, the casting is great in this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love when they break into the house and they hit Tom Hanks hits the gas line, and then the house explodes, and you're like, "Where the hell is he?" And then his walk out of the house, just him walking out of the house, is hysterical.
Yeah.
And him just like his eyes swollen, he doesn't know where he's at, and like it's just
The porch collapses like right behind him and he's totally unfazed.
amazing shot, by the way.
Yeah.
That shot is dynamite. That's so good. Then you get Carrie Fisher coming back and seeing the aftermath of all that, which I wanted to bring up a point that I notated while watching it, because I noticed this in every single movie, and I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but every time there's like scenes or someone in a car, the headrests are always missing.
Yeah.
It always annoys me, but I get why they do it.
It's because if they're shooting inside the car,
Yeah,
they get in the way.
yeah. And it's always funny. Like you could see when Carrie Fisher's pulling up, you can see her like sun visor light on because it's like trying to light her face. I'm a big car guy, and like I just notice these little things, and it always makes me laugh. And like it kind of takes me out of the scene. I'll be like, "Oh, headrests are missing." I just always notice that.
Yeah.
So people, if you haven't noticed that before, I'm sorry. You will notice it every time now.
Yep.
But yeah, that's when you get the amazing amazing monologue that you said that Tom Hanks does, where he basically says they're lunatics. Like they're not believing that they're now believing that the Klopeks are just normal people, and like the cops are there, and Tom Hanks thinks he's going to go to jail, and yeah, that monologue is just so good and so well done, and I love when he is like, take me to the hospital, and grabs the stretcher and like throws it into the ambulance and dives in there. Apparently, he improvised all that, and that's like, I love that. That whole sequence of events right there and scene is just awesome. It's so funny.
I like as he's laying there, like Carrie Fisher's like, all right, I'll meet you there. And he's just like, okay.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, it's so funny. And then like I was thinking like, all right, well that's it. Like they're not the Klopeks are not Satanists or cultists or, any like murderers. But then they flip the script again and it's like, oh, they are, which is great. And just like, oh shit. So I like that they did that, because I was not expecting that.
Right. Yeah. It's in like another context, it would be like a great like mindfuck moment, but because it's a comedy, it's hilarious. Like you're kind of like, especially that's like right after he goes into that monologue about how like they're the lunatics for like breaking in these poor people's house, and like look at us, like we destroyed their entire lives and all this stuff. And like then the guy turns around and tries to murder him in the back of the ambulance. So it's just really great writing. And like, and you're not expecting it at all, because you're supposed to believe, the characters. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. And according to, there's a book called The Films of Tom Hanks, which is kind of funny. There was a lot of temptation for this movie to broaden the neighborhood and to go outside of it. But apparently that seemed to violate the spirit of the movie, which I agree 100%. It's like, it's again, I love how self-contained it is, and it's like its own little world, its own neighborhood, its own thing. Yeah. And it just simplifies it. And I love that. There's no need to follow the Klopeks outside of the neighborhood. There's no need to follow Carrie Fisher's character out of the neighborhood. None of that. And it really lends to the world building within this small area, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, it's cool because there is no like external force. Like they never call the police. They never like, look for help outside of, the like group of dads in the neighborhood to like figure out what's going on. Like you said, it's like this self-contained bubble that, and then like, in like some ways it's almost like a little like claustrophobic, even though it's in like a cul-de-sac. But there's only really 4 different like set pieces, that you see. So like, and they're all in like very tight proximity. And even when they're showing the guys like walking around, they're never really out in the open. They're always like against, like a set piece, So it's not very like, there's not a whole lot of like openness and like, wide shots in this movie, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, claustrophobic. That's the perfect way to put it, almost, or just self-contained. I read a lot about, like, kind of the ending, and in the original script, Ray Peterson, Tom Hanks' character, was intended to be killed by Dr. Klopek, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But once Tom Hanks was cast in the role, the studio didn't think the audience would appreciate witnessing his death on screen because, it's Tom Hanks. So the ending was reworked, obviously. Several alternate endings were shot, though, and they can be seen on the Blu-ray and I think on IMDb. But were other items besides the bones that were found in the Klopex car. Apparently, dead cheerleaders were in there, and then the 2 garbage men from the beginning were in there. So, revisions were requested to make Hanks, whose box office, profile mojo had increased since the success of Big, and they wanted to make that dominant in the film as like cinematically as possible. So they weren't going to kill him off, which is crazy though that they originally had that. And there's the alternate ending. I did watch it on IMDb. The Henry Gibson's character, Dr. Klopek, is when he has the needle, when he's got Tom Hanks on the stretcher, he's actually intending to kill him there. And Tom Hanks is screaming in the back of the ambulance, and all the other characters open the door, and they're like, oh, gotcha. It's one of those moments, which I'm glad they didn't have that, because the way it is now is much better.
I like how the bones in the trunk are like, one, there's like a shitload of them.
Yeah.
And 2, they're like nondescript. So like it's like adds to that like air of like what the hell are these people doing?
Ambiguity, yeah.
Yeah, like there's like no specificity whatsoever to like anything that they're doing. So it's like, oh my god, like how long have these people been doing this?
And there's a lot of bones.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like the whole trunk is like packed full.
Yeah. And I like that they open that, like Corey Feldman's the one that finds it, and he's like, oh, like, what is this? Apparently there's a major subplot in the film that's like not explained, and kind of omitted. And I kind of thought about this for like when I watched it, is Tom Hanks is supposedly on his vacation, but he actually really was let go from his job. And after the events that happened with the Klopex getting arrested, Carrie Fisher's character, walks with Ray where he confesses that, he's like, oh, I have a confession. And then Carrie Fisher's like, you've been fired from your job, right? And she's known all the time and just didn't say anything. And he obviously didn't say anything. So some of these elements of that are still in the final cut, where like Carol states that he's stressed and would go back to work in worse shape than he already was, staying up late to spy on the Klopex with Rumsfeld, Bruce Dern's character, and Art, Rick Ducommun's character. And in the third and final act, he says like he's going on vacation again, another week, which it's like that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
If you had a job. So pretty interesting. Like, did you think that at all, or?
I thought that like there might be some missing context, because in that first conversation when they're like at their like kitchen table, and she says like, the comment about going back to work more stressed, like they emphasize that like something was really like bothering him with work, or like they kind of allude to that fact. So it doesn't like make or break anything, but it kind of felt like something was maybe
missing there.
Yeah,
it's not a perfect movie, but it's good. Apparently everyone and the crew had a blast making this movie, which I feel like you can tell. So much so that Tom Hanks personally bought everyone sunglasses and left a personal note to them. And like Corey Feldman thought that because Tom Hanks was like a big rising star and now like Oscar nominated and like on the cover of Entertainment Weekly at the time, or Variety, I forget exactly which one it said, but like Corey Feldman thought he was going to be some pompous douche. And he was like, no, he was like the nicest guy and super professional. And apparently Tom Hanks and Rick Ducommun, who plays Art, they didn't really get along, but they were super professional with one another, which is interesting because they have decent like comedic chemistry in the movie, obviously being good neighbors. Also, Tom Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher, and Joe Dante all pitched in and rented out the entire Raging Waters amusement park for the entire crew and their families to go, which is awesome. Like,
Yeah,
that's so
that's cool.
nice. We kind of talked about in the last review on Midnight Madness how like the producers and director got all the cast and crew together to do like a fun rap party. So it's cool to hear things like that the cast and crew have fun, and I don't know, just to be a fly on the wall or to be in that crew and do all those things would be super fun.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, overall, I'd recommend it. I'm glad, kind of finishing up the listener recommendation month. These are movies we both, Jake and I, have not seen. So that was great. I love that. I kind of want to continue that trend. So Jake and I are going to kind of talk after this and figure out our schedule. But I'm not gonna announce what we're doing right now, but I will on Instagram. So if you guys follow us on there, keep a lookout for what we're going to be watching next. Anything else you want to add, Jake?
No, yeah, I mean, I'm glad we watched this.
Yeah.
I had seen this movie a long time ago because I did remember the house blowing up.
Okay.
But I mean, like, probably in high school was like the last time I watched it.
Gotcha.
And it was like the AMC, version from TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I did in the last podcast confuse this movie with The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, which I have seen bits and pieces of. So I've never seen this movie. And I'm glad I watched it. Again, thank you to our listeners for recommending these movies. Keep them coming. Again, slide into our DMs, comment on our videos. We're on YouTube as well. We love that. This was a fun month, and I'm looking forward to more movies that we both haven't seen.
Yeah, same.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.
Yep, see you.